You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Naruto Enters Dannyphantom with Dandadan. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of KFB Anime 87 on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Tucker took off going full speed. It was as if the world around him and Himawari turned slow, as he took off like a madman out of hell, as Himawari used her powers to push away a good bit of the crowd to clear the way. "I can't make this turn, Hima," he yelled, as the Uzumaki girl used her powers to latch onto a streetlight, launching them into the air, as they swung to the next building over, as Tucker ran along the sides, before jumping down to the intersection. The fully recovered crab form of Turbo Granny suddenly landed in front of them, ready to strike. "Back off, hag!" Himawari yelled, as she used her powers to throw a nearby car at Turbo Granny, pushing her back. "Uzumaki, that was my car!" Dash yelled, as he came out of a nearby store. "F you!" Himawari yelled, as Tucker took this chance to run up Turbo Granny's downclaw. The powered-up geek put all he had into his feet, jumping over a nearby parking garage overhead. "We're off the route, Hima, we gotta get back!" Tucker shouted, as the Uzumaki mentally latched to an electric tower flying overhead, shooting them back off in their direction. As the two teens flew in the air, Hima looked over with a smirk, as she spotted Beetlejuice driving his car, which seemed to be making a beeline for them. But before she could tell Tucker her new plan, she saw what his state was. "You're back to normal," she yelled, as they continued to free fall through the air. "Don't let go of me," she shouted, releasing her grip on Tucker, before using her powers to form mental hands to act as wings and parachute. "Transform so we can land," she yelled out, as they got closer and closer to the ground. Tucker yelled, as he transformed again, as they crashed onto the road, skidding along the sidewalk like water, till crashing to a stop. "I can't do that again, Hima. I feel like my body is tearing itself apart," Tucker said with a groan, as he held his sides. Himawari quickly scrambled to Tucker's side, but as she grabbed him to check him for any wounds, Turbo Granny and her possessed crab slammed down in front of them. "This ends now, you little brats," the yokai yelled, as she raised her claws, ready to finish the two teens off. "Hey you guys," a voice shouted from above, causing the teens to look up to see a puke green striped dune buggy driving in between Tucker and Himawari and Turbo Granny. "Get in my car if you wanna live." Beetlejuice shouted, as he looked like a rip-off Terminator. Himawari nodded at this, before quickly using her powers to grab the car and Tucker, causing them both to be pulled away from Turbo Granny as the car booked it away from the mad yokai. "Beetlejuice!" Turbo Granny screeched in anger at seeing the ghost with the most interfere with her. "Keep up with this, you hag!" Beetlejuice yelled with a laugh, as Himawari pulled herself and Tucker into the back of the ghost car, as Beetlejuice glided along the curve, evading the horde of possessed townspeople that had arrived to back Turbo Granny up. "Hey guys," Naruto smirked to his sister from the passenger seat. "Bro!" Himawari gasped in surprise at seeing her brother with her friend. "I knew you were in trouble, so I hitched a ride with Bug Breath over here," Naruto said, while pointing at Beetlejuice. "Ah, sweet talker. Now pipe down and hold on tight," Beetlejuice said, before gripping the wheel tight. "I'm gonna slaughter you." Turbo Granny screamed as she jumped out of the crab she had summoned and took off after the ghost car, quickly keeping up. "Oh, hell no. Ya do me. Yeah. Beetlejuice cried, pushing down on the gas. The buggy grinned like a demon, before speeding forward, zipping through the city streets. The zombified horde chased after them, struggling to keep up, as Doom's wheels extended as tall as a monster truck's, crashing down hard over any car that got in its way. "You won't beat me, you pathetic clown!" Turbo Granny yelled as she got closer and closer to the monster truck. "SCK gas, crab as," Beetlejuice said, before pulling on a lever. Doom shook up a bit, shooting off a spray of exhaust fumes right in Turbo Granny's face, which barely did anything. "Hey, I can see the city limits. We're almost there." Naruto cheered as he smiled, seeing that they were almost home free. "Good. We can finally get Tucker some help, Ga," Himawari was saying, before Turbo Granny landed on the back of the buggy and grabbed her and lifted her up out of the buggy. "Game over, you little bee," Turbo Granny yelled, as she held up her free hand, ready to throttle Himawari. "Hima!" Naruto yelled, as his fangs started to show. "Dummy! Don't stop, no matter what!" Beetlejuice yelled, before he stood up and threw himself at Turbo Granny, turning into a snake, before tackling her and starting to wrestle her on the back of the ghost buggy. "You pathetic little prankster! Why are you interfering?" Turbo Granny yelled, as she grabbed Beetlejuice by his head and shook him a bit. "What can I say, friends make you do crazy things, hag," Beetlejuice said with a defiant smirk. Turbo Granny growled at this, before she felt herself freeze, as Himawari used her powers to grab her and pin her down. "Keep her pinned, BJ," Himawari said with a defiant grin, as she held out her hands. "You think you can keep me like this forever?" Turbo Granny yelled in a rage, as she struggled to get loose. "Nope, but we can keep you still long enough for you to reach that," Naruto said with a smirk, as he jerked a thumb at the upcoming city limits. Where the Spellman family along with Danny, Sam and Jazz was standing in wait, with Salem putting the finishing touches on their part of the plan. "That's the last one," Hilda said, as the runes began to glow. "Are you sure this is gonna work?" Sabrina asked her aunts. "Absolutely. This would have the Pope's top exorcist green with envy," Zelda said, looking over to see clouds of dust coming up and Dummy closing in. "Well, it better work, because here it comes," Casper said, as he stood by ready to help however he could. "Ga! DMNU Uzumakis!" Turbo Granny yelled, as she tried to get loose from Himawari's grip, while Beetlejuice tightened himself around her. "Game over," Himawari said with a smirk of victory. "You lose," Naruto said, as he too smirked and gave a peace sign. "I believe it was Dostoevsky who said, later, Fr. Beetlejuice said with a mad laugh, as they crossed the city limits and over the new runes the Spellmans had put down. "Ga'awa!" Turbo Granny yelled as she, Beetlejuice and Dummy were engulfed in green flames, before they exploded into nothing, causing Naruto, Himawari and the unconscious Tucker to go flying. "Whoa, we got you!" Hilda yelled, as she and Zelda used magic to catch the three teens in mid-air. "Thanks aunties," Naruto said, as he gave the two elder witches a thumbs up. "Yeah, thanks," Himawari said with a sigh of relief at the race finally being over. "I can't believe it, you kids actually beat an S-class yokai," Salem said, as he shook his head. "Indeed. I do believe even the best Uzumakis had a hard time doing that," Zelda said with a smile, as she and Hilda let the three teens down on the ground. "Hey, are you guys okay?" Jazz asked, as she and the others approached their friends. "Yeah, we're fine. Tucker is passed out though," Naruto said as he stood up, before he shook the passed out teen a bit to wake him up. "Ga! What happened? What year is it? Is the Rock president?" Tucker yelled, as he sat up. "In order, we beat the old hag, the year is the same and no, the Rock isn't president," Sabrina said. "You get your curse lifted?" Danny asked, as he chuckled at his friend. Tucker paused at this, before he turned around and looked down his pants, before he smiled widely. "Yes. I'm a man again," he yelled, as he pumped his fists. "Technically, you were a man before that, when you stepped up and stole that hag's power, so we could escape," Himawari said with a chuckle at her friend. "Whoa, he did that?" Sam asked, raising an eyebrow at this. Yeah. The hag took her curse back and we would have been screwed, if he hadn't attacked her, Himawari said with a nod at this. Does this mean he's got powers for good? Danny asked with a grin along with Tucker. I don't think so. The way it works with the bigger yokai is that you either take it all or earn their respect to get a piece permanently, otherwise it's temporary, Naruto said with a shake of his head. Hey, I'm just happy I have my manhood back, Tucker said with a smile at this. I'm just surprised that Moron's buggy was able to keep up with that hag, Salem said, referring to Beetlejuice and Dummy. OSHT. BJ. Will he be okay? Himawari yelled in realization, as she didn't see her friend after they crossed the town border. Relax kid, the barrier we put around the town only sends spirits and apparitions back to limbo when they cross it, Hilda said, as she held up her hand to put her at ease. That's good. While he may be a loon, he really came through for us, Naruto said with a nod. Does this mean you're not gonna give me CRP for being friends with him? Himawari asked, as she looked at her brother. That depends. Are you still going to give me attitude for the power I use? Naruto asked as he crossed his arms. This caused Himawari to pause for a moment, before she sighed. Okay, if you're going to twist my arm, I'm sorry bro. We are family, no matter what. I shouldn't have acted like such a b, she said, as she rubbed the back of her head. Apology accepted, Naruto said as he smiled at this, as while his sister was still being brash, he could tell she was actually being genuine. This got smiles from the others, as they were glad that the two siblings had made up a bit. Okay, now that we are past the sappy CRP, let's get home. I'm starving for crab, Himawari said, as she rubbed her stomach a bit. Naruto laughed at this, while he tousled his sister's hair a bit, as they all made their way to the parked cars nearby. As they entered the car, Sabrina placed the family spell book down in between her and Sam. Which, unnoticed to everyone in the car, slightly activated when Sam's hand brushed against it. With Minato and Kushina. Gahahaha. My babies actually beat an S-class yokai. Kushina laughed, as she cheered a bit. And Beetlejuice actually stepped up in a big way. Speaking of, Minato said with a smile, as he saw said ghost arrive in a burst of smoke. Gah! I hate barriers. That CRP hurts. Beetlejuice yelled, as he shook himself a bit. Come here you. Kushina yelled, as she approached Beetlejuice. Don't kill me. Or punch me in the face, as that's my money maker. Beetlejuice yelled in a panic, before Kushina grabbed him and pulled him into a headlock. Look at you, proving me wrong. Kushina said with a grin, as she gave Beetlejuice a noogie. So, does this mean that we're square? Beetlejuice asked, as he looked at Minato, who was watching this with a grin. We are square, Minato said with a nod at this, as Beetlejuice had shown that he was a loyal friend just now. You just make sure to keep having my kids' backs, you hear? Kushina said with a firm grin, as she tapped her knuckles against Beetlejuice's head for emphasis. Yes ma'am, Beetlejuice said with a nod, before the redhead went back to giving him a noogie. Japan. Meanwhile in Japan, what looked like several figures wearing black cloaks with red clouds on them, were watching the events in Amity Park through a crystal ball. It would seem that the Uzumaki clan is not only as strong as ever, but they have grown strong enough to defeat an S-class yokai, one of the cloaked figures said with a calm tone. Indeed. We will have to continue to observe them for now, one of the figures said, as they watched the image of Naruto and Himawari with his eyes. His red eyes which had 3 black commas. Casper High. It was the next day after the race with Turbo Granny and Naruto and Himawari were on their way to school for the day. Geez, you two really trashed the nasty burger, sis, Naruto said, as they drove past said fast food restaurant, which was shut down, thanks to Turbo Granny's rampage. Hey, it was the hag's fault, not mine, Himawari said, as she kept her eyes on her book for the recently deceased. Yeah, but you led her there, so you could use their hot water, Naruto said, as he frowned at his sister. Well it worked, didn't it? Himawari asked. Technically, it only stalled that Hag's crab form, Beetlejuice said, as his face appeared on the bobblehead that was on Naruto's dashboard. Since when are you on his side? Himawari said, raising an eyebrow at this, as she looked up from her book. And why are you possessing my bobblehead? Naruto asked, blinking in surprise at seeing Beetlejuice. Call it a friend's benefit. Also, why do they call it Nasty Burger? Is it because the food tastes horrible? Or are they just owning the fact that they SCK? Beetlejuice asked, as he raised an eyebrow. Anyway, the point is, if you're going to be fighting spirits and apparitions, you should be more aware of collateral damage, Naruto said, as he looked at his sister, while ignoring Beetlejuice. Oh, relax. I'm not looking to join the family business anyway. That thing with Turbo Hag was a one-time thing, Himawari said, as she rolled her eyes and went back to her book. You will join him, young one. It is your destiny, Beetlejuice said, as he spoke in an ancient voice, while switching his outfit to a hood. Watch it, Yoda, Himawari said, as she rolled her eyes at this. I was more going for the Obi-Wan look, but I'll take it, Beetlejuice said with a grin. More OG trilogy, not the bad as one, Naruto said, as he parked the car in the high school parking lot. Hima, your brother is being mean to me. Beetlejuice whined. Walk it off, you have heard worse, Himawari said, as she got out of the car along with Naruto. That's true, Beetlejuice said with a shrug, before he faded away with a poof of smoke. As the two Uzumakis entered the school, they noticed that the students were avoiding them, more specifically, they were whispering and pointing at Himawari, as they walked past them. Is there something you did that you forgot to tell me about, sis? Naruto asked, as he raised an eyebrow at this. Not to my knowledge, though if they are going to be leaving me alone like this, I'm going to be liking this, Himawari said with a light grin. Naruto sighed at this, but before he could say anything. Uzumaki. Dash yelled from down the hallway. What is it, Dash? Naruto asked, as he sighed at the jock, already feeling a headache coming. Your freak sister and... Some goth freak trashed my car last night. Dash yelled, as he approached the siblings, while some other students watched. Hey, in my defense, I didn't know it was your car I was throwing at that crab. But good to know Karma decided to F you, Himawari said with a grin. Yeah, well, you better have the money to pay me back, you little freak. Dash said with a scowl at Himawari. Sorry, I'm a little light. Do you take salutes though? Himawari asked, as she flipped Dash off. You little Dash, Dash was saying, as he raised his fist but was stopped, as Naruto grabbed his wrist. You don't want to be doing that, seeing as you obviously know she has powers, if you saw her throw your car at a dangerous spirit, who was attacking, Naruto said with a firm tone. You think I'm afraid of whatever bullshit powers she has? Dash asked with a glare. Obviously not. So tell me this, do you want to see what I can do to you, if you PSS me off? Naruto asked, as he narrowed his eyes which slitted, as he lightly growled at Dash, before he applied pressure to his wrist. Dash quickly yelled in pain at this, before he jumped, back holding his wrist. Good call, Naruto said with a firm tone, as he nodded. Yeah, who said all jocks are stupid? Himawari said with a mocking smirk on her face, before she and Naruto walked away from Dash. Dash scowled at this, before he walked away while rubbing his wrist slightly. As Naruto stopped at his locker to get his stuff for his first class for the day and talked to Jazz, Himawari spotted Tucker, who was talking to Danny and Sam. Hey, how's it feel to be whole again? Himawari asked, as she arrived at her locker. It feels great, Tucker said with a smile at this. Yeah, that and thanks to your little escapade with Turbo Granny and Dash's car last night, Tucker's yokai mode is now the talk of the town, Sam said, as she shook her head at her friend. Ah hell. So I'm guessing that some fools with their phones got footage? Himawari asked, as she looked at Danny and Sam. Afraid so, Danny said, as he held up his phone, which was playing a video of Tucker in his transformed state carrying Himawari on his back, as she used her psychic hand to throw Dash's car at Turbo Granny in her crab form, before he took off up her crab arm. Thankfully, no footage of him in human form got out there, so he's in the clear, Sam said, as she too had seen the footage. "Aw man, and here's me thinking that it would help me get some girls to like me, if they knew it was me," Tucker said with a pout. "Better luck next time, Hot Topic," Himawari said, as she opened her locker. Tucker groaned at this, as he slammed his head against his locker, while Danny and Sam laughed at this. "So did anything else happen?" Himawari asked, as she took out her books. "Well, Danny trashed the Axion building last night, chasing some ghost dog, after we went home," Sam said as she closed her locker. "Wait, he did what?" Naruto asked, as he and Jazz approached them. "Hey, in my defense, this wasn't your garden variety dog. He destroyed the lab and then ran off, after I tried to stop him," Danny said with a sheepish chuckle. "Ah. Well, if you want, me and you can go hunt that thing down after school," Naruto said, as he nodded at this. Jazz smiled at this, glad that Danny actually had some backup from someone, who knew what they were doing. "Have you tried using a dog whistle, to get it to come to you?" Sam asked curiously. "Didn't think of that. I think it had a collar on, but I didn't get a good look, when he was trying to bury me," Danny said. "That's not a bad idea. We can make a plan at lunch," Naruto said as he held out his fist for Danny, who fist bumped him, before Naruto and Jazz went to their class, while the rest of them went to their own class. Later at lunch, Himawari was sitting at a lunch table with Sam and Tucker, while Naruto and Danny were at a different table, going over some ideas on how to catch the ghost dog. As Sam and Himawari ate their lunch, they noticed Valerie walking into the cafeteria. But as she walked, she ignored the popular table and went to sit at a table that was free. "What's her deal?" Himawari asked, taking note of the look she was giving the popular kids. "Maybe she's seen the light about popular kids being morons?" Sam asked with a shrug. "Actually, I heard her dad was fired and she's not rich anymore, so that's why she's being shunned," Casper's voice whispered to them, making the three teens jump in surprise. "I said not to do that," Himawari hissed at the invisible ghost. "What job was her father fired from?" Sam asked curiously. "It was some kind of lab job. Sabrina said something about a ghost dog trashing the place and getting past his secretary easily," Casper's voice said. This caused Himawari to frown, as she looked at Valerie, as she recalled how she had ended up being shunned back in Japan, after her parents died and rumors about her family started getting around. "I'm gonna go talk to her," Himawari said, as she stood up from the table. "Since when do you cheer anyone up?" Tucker asked, raising an eyebrow at this, as he finished a bite of his burger. "Shut up and come help," Himawari said, as she grabbed Tucker by the back of his shirt and lifted him up. "Hey! What about Sam?" Tucker asked, as he pointed at their goth friend. "I'll watch this train wreck from here, thank you very much," Sam said, as she waved her hand dismissively at this. Himawari ignored this, as she and Tucker approached Valerie's table. "Hey Valerie. If you want, you can sit with Dash," Tucker was saying, before he was cut off. "Look, just because I'm not popular anymore, doesn't mean I'm desperate enough to hang out with you and your fellow losers," Valerie said with an annoyed look at the two. "Well, if you're going to be AB about it," Himawari said with a scoff, before she turned around and walked away. "So does this mean you don't want to go out, Gaha?" "Hey, I need to hear with that," Tucker was asking, before Himawari grabbed him by his ear and dragged him away from Valerie. Himawari rolled her eyes at this, as she pushed Tucker back into his seat at their table, before sitting down next to him. "Wow, not even a minute. I'm guessing that didn't go well?" Sam asked with a chuckle. "Hey, at least we tried," Himawari said with a shrug, as even though she was going to be a bit more mellow now, she wasn't going to be a saint. "Hey, if you're looking to make new friends, then you should try to befriend Sabrina," Casper's voice whispered to them. "Aren't we technically already friends with her?" Tucker asked, as he rubbed his ear. We are more acquaintances through her aunts and having being from weird families in common, Himawari said, as she shrugged a bit. Well, she's a better option than Valerie at least, Sam said, as she didn't have a problem with the teenage witch, as she hadn't done anything to them yet. Himawari nodded at this, as she spotted Sabrina walking into the cafeteria, carrying her bagged lunch. Hey Spellman. There's room over here, she yelled out to her. This made Sabrina pause and look at their table, but before she could say anything. Ugh. I knew you were a freak, Spellman, Paulina said from her seat at the popular table. Yeah. I mean, didn't you see what she did to Dash's car? She used some freaky power to throw his car at some monster crab, Quan said, as he held up his phone showing the footage. To be fair, the guy running with Uzumaki has a cool look, Star said with a smile, before Paulina gave her an annoyed look, making her chuckle. Sheepishly. You guys do realize that insulting someone with powers and contacts with spirits is a dumb move, right? Himawari asked, as she raised an eyebrow at this. Yeah, and how did that work out for your parents? Dash asked with a scoff. This got silence from the cafeteria, more specifically, Himawari's eyes narrowed at this, while Naruto crushed his can of soda. Oh CRP, Sam said with a groan at this. You mother Dash, Himawari growled out as she stood up, before she was cut off by. Whoa, what the hell? Dash yelled, as Tucker grabbed him by the front of his shirt. Take that back, Tucker growled, as his eyes turned red and his hair started to slightly turn gray, as what felt like a lot of pressure filled the room. Let me go, DMN. Dash yelled, as he tried to get loose from Tucker's grip. Tucker growled at this, but before he could do anything, Himawari slapped him on the back of the head, while channeling some of her power, making him snap out of it and drop Dash along with making the pressure filling the room fade away. Chronicles of Narnia, what's going on in here? Lancer yelled, as he entered the cafeteria. Uzumaki and her friends almost attacked Dash and used some kind of freak trick to make it so he couldn't fight back. Quan yelled, as he helped Dash to his feet. Oi, that's not true. He insulted Himawari. Sam yelled, as she stood up. Enough. Congratulations Uzumaki. You, Manson and Folly, will be helping Mr. Fenton set up the haunted house for the Halloween party at Whipstaff Manor, Lancer said with a firm tone, as he saw that the front of Dash's shirt was ripped. Dash smirked at the group, as they all went back to their table. Seeing this, Sabrina frowned, before she quickly went to go sit at a free table by herself, as things were way too tense for her to choose sides. I would like to volunteer to put that F-wad out of his future misery, Himawari growled out, as she glared back at Dash and the popular table. Hima, there are better ways to deal with this. Right, Naruto? Jazz said as she. Naruto and Danny approached to sit with them. I say that we summon BJ and tell him to give him a free pass to put him in therapy, ga. Okay. Naruto growled out, as he too glared at Dash, before Jazz grabbed his ear and pulled on it a bit, before letting go. What the heck was that, Tucker? Danny whispered to his friend. Yeah. I thought this whole thing was over with, since you beat Turbo Granny, Sam whispered with a nod. I have no idea. I just saw a red when he said that about Hima's parents, Tucker said, as he looked at his hands, surprised at what he had almost done. Do you have any ideas what's going on? Jazz asked, as she looked at Naruto. I have a few ideas, but to be sure, we should ask Auntie Hilda and Zelda Dash, Naruto was saying as he rubbed his chin, before he was cut off. Screw that. Himawari yelled, as she slammed her hands on the table. Since when do you have a problem with them? Jazz asked as she raised an eyebrow, while Naruto frowned at this. I don't think she has a problem with them, Sam said as she turned her glare toward Sabrina, who was sitting at her table, eating her lunch. Oh geez. Look sis, everyone makes Dash, Naruto was saying, before he was cut off once again. Like I give a DMN. If she can't be a decent human being and wants to play both sides, then she can go to hell, oi. Who threw that? Himawari was saying, before an apple smacked her on the back of the head. Everyone looked around surprised at this, while at Sabrina's table, the teenage witch looked at the invisible Casper, who was floating next to her with a look of disapproval, as she had seen the apple float in the air, before it was sent flying at Himawari. Anyway, if we're helping out with setting up the Halloween party at Whipstaff, then we can ask Hilda and Zelda while we're there, Sam said as she gestured to Tucker and Himawari. I am not helping with this bull dash, Himawari was saying with a scowl, before she was cut off. Sis, just do it, alright? You don't need the detention. Plus, you love Halloween, Naruto said, as he sighed at his sister. Okay, fine, Himawari said, as she crossed her arms. Later after school. Later after school, the group was making their way towards Whipstaff Manor. Hey aunties, are you home? Naruto called out, as they entered the manor. Over her kid, Salem whispered, as he waved the group over to him, as he peeked into the kitchen through the slightly open door. What are you doing? Sam asked with a raised eyebrow. That Lancer clown is here, going over the plan for the party tomorrow night, and he's trying to put the moves on Hilda. I swear, this is better than any comedy, Salem said with a snicker, as he continued to look into the kitchen. This got snorts of laughter from Danny and Tucker. Oi, move over and let me see, Himawari said with a grin, as she took out her phone, so that she could record this. But before she could approach, the door was pushed open, as Lancer was pushed out of the kitchen by Hilda, with Zelda close behind. Okay, we got it. We should be ready by tonight. So you go ahead and make sure everything is good to go on your end. Hilda yelled, as she pushed Lancer for the door, but was stopped, as he used his arms to stop himself from being pushed through the doorway. We're still going out this weekend, right? Lancer asked, as he looked over his shoulder at Hilda with a smile. My people will call your people. Now go on, get. Hilda yelled, as she shoved Lancer out the door, before she slammed the door closed, before using a spell to lock the door. She then sighed in relief, before she turned around and paused, as she saw everyone looking at her. Not .1. Word, Hilda said with a glare, seeing the teasing smirks on some of the teens' faces. I'm not saying anything, Tucker said with a grin, as he held up his hands to show he meant no harm. Yup, we are completely innocent, Danny said with a grin of his own. Hilda nodded at this, before she walked past the teens to go back into the kitchen. What do you think their kids will look like? Salem asked with a grin. This caused Danny, Tucker and Himawari to burst out laughing at this, while the others rolled their eyes. That's it. Hilda yelled, as she turned around and raised her hand to fire a spell, before in a burst of magic, her hand was covered in what looked like a metal gauntlet, which caused her hand to fall and clang to the floor. You are so immature, Zelda said, as she shook her head at her sister, while she lowered her finger after she had cast her spell. Yeah, he's not that bad, Aunt Hilda, Sabrina said, as she shook her head at this. Well, that's true. He could be a two-faced bee, Spellman. Himawari asked, as she gave Sabrina a glare. This caused Zelda and Hilda to blink in surprise at this. I'm going to head upstairs and find an outfit for the party, Sabrina said with a nervous look, before she quickly went upstairs, with Casper flying after her. Seeing this, Salem frowned, before he gave Himawari a glare, as he ran after the young witch. Okay, what is going on? Zelda asked Naruto, as she figured that he was the one to ask. Not much to tell. She won't pick a side when it comes to us and the popular crowd, Sam said, as she crossed her arms and shrugged, as while up until now, she hadn't had a problem with Sabrina, this wasn't a good look for her in her eyes. Ah, typical teenage stuff, got it, Hilda said, as she sighed, as she struggled to lift her hand, which still had the metal gauntlet on it. We'll talk to her. Now, what brings you all here? It can't be just that, Zelda asked, as she looked at the group. Danny, Sam, Tucker and Himawari got into some trouble with the popular crowd and to avoid detention, they have to help with the haunted house tent outside for the party, Jazz explained. Oh. What did you do to get in trouble? Zelda asked curiously. Well, some jock has ran his mouth about our parents. But before I could send him to the nurse's office, Tucker almost attacked him and I had to use my powers to shut off whatever power he was using, Himawari said with an annoyed look and tone, before she jerked a thumb at Tucker. Wait, what power? Hilda asked, as the gauntlet around her hand finally faded away, and she stood up. Whatever you stole from Turbo Granny last night should be gone by now, Zelda said, as she looked at Tucker curiously. Hence the main reason we are here, Naruto said with a nod. Yeah, we can help with Halloween after we get this figured out, Sam said, as she figured it was best to just help with this, so that Lancer wouldn't give them more detention. This won't hurt, will it? Tucker nervously asked the two older witches, as they inspected him. Oh, don't be such a baby, hot topic, Himawari said, as she rolled her eyes. Tucker made an annoyed face at this, before he noticed Zelda and Hilda pausing, before they looked at each other and nodded. What is it? He asked them nervously. We have an idea what this is, don't worry kid, Hilda said, as she magically summoned her spell book and started to look through it. Well, don't keep us in suspense, what is it? Jazz asked. It's better to just show you. But first, we need some sort of anchor for whatever is possessing him, Zelda said, as she looked at Naruto. Oh geez, Naruto said, as he shook his head, realizing what was happening. What? Sam asked with a confused look. You will see. Feel free to summon something from back home, Auntie, Naruto said, before he looked at Zelda. Zelda nodded at this, before she snapped her fingers and in a burst of magic, what looked like a stuffed cat with white and light brown fur appeared in her hands. Oi! That's mine! Himawari yelled out, recognizing this stuffed animal. This got raised eyebrows from Danny, Tucker and Sam. What? My parents gave it to me, Himawari said, as she scowled and slightly blushed in embarrassment. We don't exactly have a lot of options here sis, Naruto said with a sigh. Faye, whatever. It won't hurt it, right? Himawari said, before she looked at Zelda and Hilda, as they approached Tucker. Hima, it's a stuffed toy, not an actual animal, Jazz said, as she shook her head at this. Say that to the stuffed animals you still keep, Danny whispered under his breath. Jazz blushed at this, before she gave Danny a glare at this. Oh relax, it won't hurt it. Now, let's do this, Hilda said, as she placed the stuffed cat in front of Tucker, before putting what looked like a paper seal in one of its paws. Zelda nodded at this, before she and Hilda both stood behind Tucker and started to channel their magic, before. Spirit be gone. Hilda yelled out, before she slapped the back of Tucker's head. Gah! What the hell? Tucker yelled, as he held the back of his head. How does that help? Danny asked, raising an eyebrow at this. Yeah, I do that regularly and it doesn't do squat, Himawari said with a light grin. Watch the cat, Hilda said, as she pointed at the stuffed cat. Everyone looked at the stuffed cat and after a few moments, the seal in its paws turned black and crumbled away. What's that mean? Sam asked, finding this odd. Before anyone could respond, the stuffed cat's eyes looked up at them, before it quickly ran off. Don't let it get away. Zelda yelled, as she pointed after the cat. Come back Nico-chan. Himawari yelled out without thinking, before she covered her mouth, as the others looked at her. Nico-chan. Pfft, gah. Tucker asked as he snickered slightly, before he groaned, as Himawari slugged him in the gut. It's heading upstairs. Danny yelled, as he went ghost and they all ran after the cat. With Casper and Sabrina. Meanwhile with Casper and Sabrina, they were in the attic, looking through some of the old boxes. Why not use magic to come up with a costume? Casper asked, as he poked his head out of a box of old toys. This is more so I don't have to be downstairs, Sabrina said with a sigh, as she closed the box she was looking through. What happened today really got to you, huh? Casper asked with a frown. Yeah. I mean, I want to try and have a somewhat normal life at school, but Sabrina was saying, before she was cut off. But you don't want to do it at the expense of the others? Salem asked, as he sat on a box next to Sabrina. Yeah. I mean, I had hoped that not all of the popular crowd would be that bad. I mean, Star is okay, but the more time I spend with them, the more I Sabrina was saying before she was cut off, as she noticed the stuffed cat enter the attic, before it ran over to a wardrobe and hid in it. Okay, you guys saw that, right? Either that, or I accidentally got the catnip treats again, Salem said after a few moments of silence. It ran in here. Sam yelled, as she entered the attic, with Himawari close behind her. What the heck is going on? Sabrina asked, as she approached them. I'm sorry, but I don't speak sellout, Himawari said with a flat tone of voice. Sabrina narrowed her eyes at this, but before she could respond, she was cut off by Danny, who had entered through the floor. Explain later. Where did the stuffed cat end up? Danny asked, as he looked around. Casper pointed at the nearby wardrobe. Himawari looked at the wardrobe and closed her eyes, before she held out her hands and clenched them. Gotcha, she said with a smirk. Oi, let me go, a female voice yelled from inside the wardrobe, as the doors started to shake, while everyone else entered the attic. Sam and Sabrina approached the wardrobe and opened it, revealing the stuffed cat thrashing about on the floor of the wardrobe, but not moving, thanks to Himawari's powers. What the heck is that? Tucker asked, as he looked over Himawari's shoulder at the stuffed cat. Meet Turbo Granny, Naruto said with a sigh, as he looked at the stuffed cat. EHH, as everyone but Zelda and Hilda yelled in surprise at hearing this. Hey, let me go, DMN it. I'll kill you all. Turbo Granny yelled, as she continued to struggle in vain. Is this what it's like when you're dealing with me? I gotta say, I'm seeing why I'm seen as a little annoying, Salem said, as he looked at the stuffed cat. How is this possible? We beat her, Tucker asked curiously. Indeed you did. But I'm going to assume that right as she crossed our barrier, she possessed you and saved herself, so she wouldn't be sent back to limbo, Zelda said, as she looked down at Turbo Granny. You DMN witches. Hey kid. Kill them all and I will free you from my influence. Turbo Granny yelled, as she pointed at Tucker. Tucker's eyes widened at this, before he grabbed his head and transformed. He still had the same gray skin and white hair as before, only now he had a long trench coat. Nice upgrade, Sam said, as she looked at Tucker. That's it. Now kill them all. Turbo Granny yelled, as she pointed at Tucker. What a drag, Tucker said, as he lowered his head, obviously depressed. What? Turbo Granny yelled, shocked that he didn't obey her. Yeah, here's the thing Hag, when we made you leave the kid's body, we only kicked out your subconscious. We left your power inside the kid, Hilda said with a smirk, as she looked down at Turbo Granny, while holding a broom in her hands. This made Turbo Granny freeze in surprise, while everyone looked at Tucker. So wait, Tucker has all her power now? Danny asked, while Tucker transformed back to normal. Looks like it. Congratulations, Naruto said with a nod at Tucker. Alright. There's a new ghost fighting teen in town. Tucker yelled with a grin, as he pumped his fists in the air. This isn't going to end like last time, is it? Sam asked with a raised eyebrow, referring to the time Tucker got ghost powers from Desiree. Ugh, you just had to bring that up, Tucker said with a groan, as even he had to admit, that wasn't his best moment, even if he was being manipulated slightly. Don't worry, Edgelord. I'll keep you humble. Now, what are we going to do with the hag? Himawari asked, as she looked down at Turbo Granny. I say that we just let her go, seeing as she is helpless now, Jazz said, as she didn't see the point in keeping her around, if she wasn't a threat now. That's not a good idea. I mean, she has a bad reputation in Limbo, and if it gets out that she's helpless, she's going to get hunted down just for sport, Naruto said, as he shook his head at this. So what, we let her bunk with one of us? Sam asked, raising an eyebrow at this. Not it. Danny and Tucker yelled out, as they made X motions with their arms. Don't look at us, our annoying cat quota is already filled, Hilda said as she scoffed, as she pointed at Salem. Like I would ask to stay with you, hag. Ow. 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 Turbo Granny was saying, before Hilda started to smack her with her broom. What about you, Hima? I mean technically, it's your stuffed animal, Sabrina asked the youngest Uzumaki. Oi. Who said you could address me like that, sellout? Himawari yelled at Sabrina, making her scowl at this, but before she could respond. Who are you calling a sellout? Casper yelled, as he got in Himawari's face. Since when does he have an attitude? Tucker asked, raising an eyebrow at this. No clue, Danny said with a shrug. Teenagers. Sis. Hilda said with a grin at Zelda. You better back the hell up, Bongo Head. Himawari yelled at Casper. Oh, nice comeback. I've heard better insults from my uncles. Casper yelled back. Will you all shut the hell up? I'm getting a headache. Turbo Granny yelled loudly, as she continued to struggle in vain to get loose from Himawari's grip, as the teens continued to argue with each other. With Tucker. It was the next day after Tucker had gotten Turbo Granny's spirit removed from his body and after Zelda and Hilda had moved the spirit to Himawari's stuffed cat, they had decided to have the possessed toy stay with the Uzumakis. Currently, Tucker was on his way to school, and as he approached the school, he walked by some fellow teens, who were talking. I don't know. I don't think that goth-looking guy that was helping Uzumaki looks that cool, one of the teens was saying. Yeah. I mean, he makes Manson look subtle, another said, getting some laughs. I don't know. I mean, you don't see Manson running fast and up a monster crab with no fear, one of the students said, as they showed the footage of Tucker running up the possessed crab's claw, before jumping over a building. Whoa. I didn't see that part, just what Dash showed me, with him helping Uzumaki trash his car, a student said with wide eyes. You think he's like that ghost kid? One of the other teens asked curiously. Tucker grinned at this, as he approached the front doors of the school. You do realize that my powers are the only reason they think you're cool, right? Turbo Granny asked, as she poked her head out of Tucker's backpack. What the hell? Tucker yelled out, before he quickly took off his backpack and ran into the school, as he ran into a secluded corner of the hallway. So this is a modern high school, huh? Interesting, Turbo Granny said, as she looked around a bit. What the hell are you doing here? I thought you were rooming with Hima and her brother, Tucker hissed out under his breath, as he looked around to see if anyone had spotted them or was listening. Why would I waste my time with them, when I could stay with you and wait for a chance to get my powers back? Turbo Granny asked, as she looked at Tucker. Because from what I heard, you have comforting the dead in common with them, Tucker said with a firm look, as Himawari had told him about Turbo Granny and what she was known for. Faye. F brat, running her mouth, Turbo Granny scoffed at this, as she looked away from Tucker and grumbled under her breath. Hey, I'm all for you attacking assholes who did SHT that bad to girls. But come on, you have to admit, you take that SHT way too far with all guys, Tucker said, as he looked at the possessed cat toy. Oi. Don't play therapist with me, brat. You think a few encounters with low-level spirits means you can judge me? Turbo Granny asked with a glare as she got in Tucker's face. Hey, I helped Hima beat you and I am on a first-name basis with Beetlejuice, Tucker said with a smug tone. Gah. Don't mention that DMN idiot. I got enough of that moron last night. Turbo Granny yelled with a scowl at this, as she fell back into Tucker's backpack. Let me guess, you ran your mouth and Hima summoned him and he gave you the business. Tucker asked with a knowing grin. Jrrrr. Turbo Granny growled at this, fire in her eyes from her anger, at what she had gone through last night. Flashback last night in Himawari's room. Take another swing, BJ. Himawari yelled out, as she sat on her bed and used her psychic powers to hang Turbo Granny in the air. Okay Hima. Hey, do you think there'll be any candy inside her? Beetlejuice asked with a grin, as he changed his outfit to a baseball outfit, complete with a baseball bat, which he held at the ready to take another swing. Oi, let me down, you little SHT. This is degrading to a yokai of my status. Turbo Granny yelled, as she struggled in vain to get loose. What status? Tucker has all your power now, Himawari said with a smug tone, as she used her powers to make the possessed doll swing a bit. He what? Gahahahaha. Oh man, that's the best. The great Turbo Granny lost her power to a new bee. Beetlejuice yelled with a laugh. I didn't lose to him. I lost to those Uzumakis. Turbo Granny yelled. Yeah, well, seeing as my brother already has a spirit's power and I'm not interested, then I say let him have your power. He can't be worse than you, Himawari said with a shrug. So you pass my power to your little boy toy, instead of using it yourself? That's even worse. Turbo Granny yelled in a rage. Boy toy? Himawari asked, her eyebrow twitching at this. Oh boy. Everyone hit the deck. Mount Hima's gonna blow. Beetlejuice yelled out. BJ, SWCH to a medieval mace. We're gonna have a bonus round. Himawari said with an evil grin. UF psychopath. Turbo Granny yelled in a rage, as Beetlejuice switched his outfit to an executioner outfit and his bat to a spiked medieval mace and swung it at her. Flashback end. Oof. Nice to know Naruto wasn't kidding about Uzumaki women having a mean streak, when pushed, Tucker said with a wince, as he approached his locker, while wearing his backpack, as Turbo Granny hid in it while peeking out of it. So what are you going to do with my power anyway? Turbo Granny asked Tucker, as he opened his locker. I'm not really sure. I had considered helping Danny with going after ghosts that come through the ghost portal, but I didn't get to ask him and Naruto if I could help them yet, Tucker said, as he thought about this a bit. You need to ask permission. Faye, what a waste, Turbo Granny said with a scoff. Tucker gained an annoyed look at this, but before he could respond to this, what sounded like loud barking was heard, before what looked like a large green dog with a spiked collar came through a hallway. What caught Tucker's attention was that Danny in his ghost form was hanging onto the dog's hind legs, in an attempt to stop the dog, as he ran through the hallway, making students scream and run away, as the ghost dog destroyed some trash cans. Heel. Sit. Stay. Danny was yelling out, as he and the ghost dog ran out the front doors of the school. So what's it going to be, boy? Are you going to help or not? Turbo Granny asked, as she looked at Tucker, as he watched this, while the other students ran away. Tucker thought about this for a few moments, before he smiled, as his hair started to turn white. I just hope that you don't make a fool of yourself, Turbo Granny said, as the hallway emptied, leaving Tucker and her alone. What a drag, Tucker said, as he transformed and took off like a bullet after Danny and the ghost dog. Too late. Turbo Granny yelled, as she held on to Tucker's backpack for dear life as he ran out of the school. With Danny. Meanwhile in the park, the ghost dog was running through it, destroying everything in its path, as Danny held on to his neck. Do you want to play fetch? Then bring me a stick and I'll throw it for you, Danny said, as he tried to get the ghost dog to stop. The ghost dog's ears perked up at this, but before it could respond, it saw Tucker in his yokai form appear in front of him, blocking his path, causing the ghost dog to screech to a halt. And making Danny go flying off the ghost dog and slam at Tucker's feet. Tucker. What are you doing here? Danny asked with a groan, as he looked up at his transformed best friend. I saw that you were having some trouble, so I decided to help. What's with the dog? I thought you sent him back after he trashed Axion, Tucker asked, as he looked at Danny. He showed back up at Axion. He's obsessed with that place and dragged me all over town after I chased him off, Danny said, as he stood up and dusted himself off. As this was happening, the ghost dog shrunk down to a way smaller form, which made him look like a small puppy. He probably has some unfinished business there, Turbo Granny said, as she poked her head out of Tucker's backpack and rested her head on his shoulder. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at Naruto's? Danny asked, raising an eyebrow at the possessed toy. Yeah, she decided that she's going to hang out with me, Tucker said with a depressed tone, as he slumped over a bit. Get used to it. I'm not letting my power be used by some rookie, who doesn't know what he's doing, Turbo Granny said, as she crossed her arms. Well, if you're going to help, what do you suggest we do with him? Danny asked, as he jerked a thumb at the ghost dog, who was sniffing at them curiously. Well, you could read its collar first and learn its name, Turbo Granny said, as she pointed at the dog's collar. Why didn't you think of that the first time? Dogs respond to their names, Tucker said, as he looked at Danny. I was busy trying to avoid being buried and being made a chew toy, Danny said with an annoyed look, as he approached the dog to inspect its collar. Ugh, no matter. The era teenagers are stupid, Turbo Granny said with a groan, as she slapped her forehead and shook her head slightly. Kyujo, eh? Danny asked, as he looked at the ghost dog's name tag. The now named Kyujo barked happily at this, as he looked up at Danny. Danny smiled at this, but before he could do anything else, Kyujo's ears perked up and he looked towards the park and started to growl, before he grew to his big form again. What's wrong, boy? Danny asked, as he looked where Kyujo was looking, along with Tucker. Incoming! Tucker yelled out, as what looked like a bunch of red blasts came at them. Danny and Tucker both took cover in an alleyway, while Kyujo barked at a figure that was flying towards them. It was someone obviously female from their figure, wearing a red and black outfit, while riding on a hoverboard, with thrusters at the back, with a large blaster on their shoulder. Time for revenge for ruining my life, Fido and Ghost Freaks, the female yelled, as she took aim at them with her blaster. Valerie? Danny yelled in surprise at this, before he jumped to the side to avoid blasts from his fellow teen. Hey, I didn't ruin anything. Oi, watch the hair. Tucker yelled, as he quickly dodged to the side. You are a ghost freak like him. Valerie yelled, as she took aim at them to fire again. Okay, I'm done, Tucker said as he glared at Valerie, before in a burst of speed, he was behind Valerie and had her blaster in his hand. If you can't play nice, then I'm going to take your toys away, Tucker said, as he threw the blaster over his shoulder. Play with this. Valerie yelled, as she turned and threw a punch at Tucker, as a mini blaster appearing on her arm, which quickly charged and when it got close to Tucker, it fired, blasting him point blank. Gah! Tucker yelled, as he was sent flying into an alleyway and into a wall. Hey! Back off! Danny yelled, as he flew towards Tucker, but was cut off, as Valerie turned to him to aim at him with her arm blaster. Game over, you freak, Valerie said with a glare behind her mask, as she took aim at Danny and Kyujo, who was at his side growling. But before she could attack, her hoverboard suddenly stopped and fell apart right from under Valerie. What the hell? Valerie yelled out, as she fell into a dumpster in a heap. Huh? That wasn't you, was it? Danny asked, as he looked at Tucker, as he figured his friend would be that quick. Are you kidding? I can barely feel my teeth right now after that blast, Tucker groaned out, as he struggled to get up. That was me, Naruto said with a firm tone, getting the two teens and ghost dog's attention, making them look above them at the top of the overhead light, seeing Naruto standing on top of it, with his claws, fox ears and his three tails out, as he glared at Valerie. What are you doing here? Danny asked Naruto, as he jumped down to them. School got cancelled for the day, thanks to you and your new furry buddy. So I decided to go after you and see what was going on. What are you doing here? Naruto asked, as he looked at Tucker. Well, I saw Danny was having trouble and I figured since I have Granny's power now, I could help, Tucker said, as he stood up and shook his head. Good job with that, Naruto said with a flat tone of voice, as he had seen the destruction Kyujo had caused, while making his way here. I swear, these brats need boot camp, Turbo Granny said with a groan, as she poked her head out of Tucker's backpack. What are you doing here? Why aren't you in Himawari's room back at the house? Naruto asked Turbo Granny with a glare. Because your sister thought it would be funny for her and that bug-eating idiot to play piñata with me. Turbo Granny yelled at Naruto, as she pointed at him accusingly. Naruto blinked at this, before he sighed, mentally cursing at Himawari, as he had hoped that seeing as Turbo Granny was like them in a way, they would get along. She's not that bad, she's actually been giving me some advice, Tucker said with a grin at the possessed toy. Yeah, I mean. If she's as old as you said, then she could have a lot to teach us, Danny said, as he nodded at Tucker. Heh, I'm finally getting some respect around here, Turbo Granny said with a smug grin, as she crossed her arms. If you guys want some training, then you could have asked me, Naruto said, as he pinched his nose. That was an option. Danny asked with a grin at this. I'm sold. Tucker yelled, as he pumped his fists in the air. Gah! Turbo Granny yelled, as she fell off Tucker's shoulder and face planted into the ground. So, when do we start training? Danny asked with a wide grin. We can discuss this, after we deal with the wannabe, Naruto said, as he turned to the dumpster, which was slightly shaking, seeing as Valerie was still in it. Careful. Valerie may have other weapons, Danny said. Yeah, that SHT hurts, Tucker said with a slight wince. Valerie? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow at this. Yeah. She's on a rampage against ghosts and spirits, after Kyujo here trashed her dad's workplace and he ended up getting fired, Danny said, as he pointed at the ghost dog. And ended up getting booted out of the popular crowd, Tucker added. Naruto blinked at this, before he sighed. Okay you guys, I have this. You guys go to Whip Staff, as we still need to set up for the Halloween party tonight, he said. Oh CRP, that's right. Danny exclaimed in shock. Thankfully, the school day was cancelled, so we have extra time. So get going, as the others are waiting there. I'll catch up with you guys later, after I've sorted this out, Naruto said, as he approached the dumpster, which was still shaking, with Valerie yelling inside it. Come on Kyujo, you come with me. We can figure out what's got you obsessed with Axion later, Danny said, as he flew off. Kyujo barked at this, as he took off after Danny. Hey, wait for us. Tucker yelled, as he ran off after them, kicking up a lot of dust, as he used his speed. Are you okay in there? Naruto asked, as he turned back to normal and tapped his finger on the lid of the garbage bin. Which soon burst open, as Valerie took aim at Naruto with some shoulder-mounted blasters. Eat this, Gah! Valerie yelled in a rage, but before she could fire, Naruto grabbed her by her wrist and twisted it hard, before he pulled her out of the dumpster and slammed her face first against the brick wall. No thanks, I'm not hungry for laser blasts, Naruto said with a firm tone. Oi, let me go, DMN it. You're not my target, so chill out Uzumaki. Yow. Valerie was yelling, before Naruto applied more pressure to her wrist, making her yell in pain. So it's okay to be a hothead with ghost hunting weapons, Miss Gray? Naruto asked with a firm tone, as he put emphasis on Valerie's last name. Valerie froze at this, before her eyes narrowed behind her mask. Who told you? She asked him with an angry tone. That's none of your business. Now, who gave you those weapons? Naruto asked, as he kept his arm on Valerie's wrists. I've no idea. All I know is that they can help me get revenge on ghosts and spirits for ruining my life. Valerie yelled, as she slightly struggled to get loose from Naruto's grip. Naruto blinked at this, before he sighed, as he had heard from Himawari and Danny what had happened to Valerie's dad and how he got fired after an escapade with Kyujo. He then let her go and stepped away from Valerie, who then got to her feet and dusted herself off. "Look Valerie, you need to stop what you are doing, before you get in over your head," Naruto said with a firm tone. "What? You think that you and your sister have a monopoly on getting rid of ghosts and spirits?" Valerie asked, as she rubbed her wrists. "You don't know anything about what my family does. We don't just hunt spirits and apparitions," Naruto said with a firm tone, as his eyes narrowed at this. Valerie raised an eyebrow at this behind her mask, but said nothing, so that Naruto could continue. "We do fight spirits and apparitions, but only the really dangerous ones, that will actually hurt people." Naruto was saying, before he was cut off. "So those ghost freaks and their dog ruining my life isn't important?" Valerie yelled. "Do you know why that ghost dog was on a rampage?" Naruto asked calmly. "Why? Why would I?" Valerie was asking, before she was cut off. "It's because that's the other part of my family's job. We find out why ghosts are here and try to comfort them and help them find peace, so that they can Naruto was saying, before he was cut off again. "So you play therapy for the dead and leave the living to suffer from them throwing a fit?" Valerie yelled, as she stepped forward. "We try to minimize the damage." Naruto was saying, before he was once again cut off. "Well, you and your sister obviously suck at your job, considering what happened to my dad. If you're not going to deal with the ghosts in this town, then I will." Valerie yelled, as she turned around and started to walk away from Naruto. Naruto's eyes narrowed at this, as his eyes slitted a bit. "No you won't," he said with slight anger in his tone. This made Valerie pause and turn her head to look at Naruto. "And how are you going to stop me?" Valerie asked with a tone of anger, as she raised her arm, as a mini blaster came out of her wrist in warning. But before she could raise it, Naruto in a burst of speed was in front of her and slam! He slammed his open palm into Valerie's gut, sending her flying into the side of the dumpster she had been inside. "Gah! Hey, what the hell?" Valerie was yelling, before Naruto appeared in front of her again and grabbed her by the front of her uniform and lifted her off her feet, before with a swipe of his claws, he slashed the high-tech belt she was wearing, which caused all of her weapons to shut down. "You think you have the right to destroy spirits because you were unlucky? What gives you that right?" Naruto asked with a growl, as his fangs became more defined, as he held Valerie by the front of her uniform. "At least I'm actually doing something. Unlike you and your sister, who just play therapy and do nothing, but pal around with that goth-looking freak." Valerie yelled, as she struggled to get out of Naruto's grip. "At least my sister actually cares enough to help when it matters, while you are just a brat throwing a tantrum because life didn't go your way. Did you ever consider that some people have had it worse because of a spirit encounter? How many people do you think have lost their homes? Their lives? Their parents?" Naruto asked, before he yelled the last example, as his fox ears and fangs came out for Valerie to see. Valerie's eyes widened in surprise at this, but before she could say anything. "What's going on down there?" a male voice coming from the end of the alleyway asked. Naruto quickly turned back to normal and dropped Valerie, as he looked at the man and saw that he had a black mustache and black hair, as he wore glasses, a white shirt, a red tie, black pants with a brown belt and black shoes. Recognizing the last name Gray in the man's security uniform and mentally smirking, as he knew that was Valerie's last name. "Ah, Mr. Gray. I'm happy to see you," Naruto said with a kind tone, as he approached Mr. Gray. "And you are?" Mr. Gray asked Naruto curiously. "Naruto Uzumaki. I'm sure that you've heard of me on the news," Naruto said. "Oh. The spiritual expert. I was actually going to ask you to come to my work and consult me, seeing as he was going to give me a second chance, but only if I could prove that my security system can keep out everything." "Living and dead," Mr. Gray said, as his eyes widened in realization as he recognized Naruto. "I would be happy to consult you, Mr. Gray. But first, we need to talk about her," Naruto said, as he pointed at Valerie, who was getting to her feet. "Huh? Who is she?" Mr. Gray asked, as he looked at his disguised daughter, who looked at her father, while Naruto approached her from behind. "Don't you dare, you freak!" Valerie was yelling, before Naruto grabbed her mask and yanked it off her head, revealing her face. "Valerie?" Mr. Gray asked, surprised at seeing his daughter. "Yes. I'm afraid that I caught her with ghost-hunting weapons, trying to fight ghosts and destroying public property," Naruto said, as he jerked a thumb to the side at some of the destruction that Valerie had caused. "She did what?" Mr. Gray yelled out. "You freak! You ruined everything!" Valerie yelled, as she took out a blaster. But before she could do anything, Mr. Gray grabbed her from behind and subdued her. "I'll leave this to you, Mr. Gray. I think she is lashing out because of her losing her popularity, and becoming lower to middle class at school. Oh, and feel free to call me about consulting at your boss's place of business," Naruto said, as he walked away from the father and daughter. "Hey, don't walk away from me. You don't get to take away my chance at revenge," Valerie yelled after Naruto, as she struggled against her father's grip. "Yes, I do," Naruto said, as he paid Valerie no mind, as he didn't look back at her, making her growl in a rage. "Valerie Gray. You are in so much trouble, young lady," Mr. Gray yelled, as he dragged her to his car, which was parked nearby. At Whipstaff. Meanwhile at Whipstaff Manor, Himawari, Sam and Jazz were arriving at the manor, where Hilda and Zelda were waiting for them, along with Sabrina and Salem next to a big tent, where the haunted house for the party tonight would be set up. Once they were done, Sabrina was carrying the family spell book so she could practice her magic and help set up the haunted house. "Come on, you lot. We're on the clock here," Hilda yelled, as she looked at the approaching teens, while tapping her wrist a few times. "Yeah, I could be using this time for other things than watching you, so that you do your job right," Salem said, as he sat on the porch. "Are you saying that pretending to be girls on internet chat rooms is important?" Casper asked, as he appeared behind Salem. "He does what?" Sam asked, raising an eyebrow at the cat. "How'd you find out? I mean, I have no idea what he's talking about," Salem said in shock, before he looked at everyone and tried to look innocent. "Well, I owe BJ and Tucker an apology, because this takes the pathetic cake," Himawari said with a snort of laughter at this. "Oi, I like the attention," Salem grumbled under his breath. "Where are the guys?" Sabrina asked curiously. "You say something sellout, oi. Watch it, bulb head," Himawari was saying, before she caught Salem with her spectral hand, who the friendly ghost had thrown at her. "Yeah, I'm not a toy for you to be a simp with," Salem yelled at the ghost, as he gave him the stink eye, before Himawari dropped him. "Okay, enough, I think I see them coming now," Zelda said, as she gave Casper a look, as he gave Himawari a look of annoyance, before she pointed at what looked like a lot of dust kicking up, which was coming at them fast. "Who? I beat you!" Tucker yelled, as he stopped in front of everyone and held his arms up in victory, as he turned back to normal, while Danny flew over behind him. "Of course you did, as you're using that hag's power," Danny said with an annoyed tone, as he turned back to normal. "Take the loss like a halfa, brat," Turbo Granny said, as she poked her head out of Tucker's backpack and smirked at the fact that Tucker had easily beaten Danny. "So that's where you have been. A little hazing and you bail like a wuss," Himawari said with a scoff at seeing the possessed stuffed animal. "Treating me like a piñata with a medieval mace is not hazing," Turbo Granny yelled, as she pointed at the young Uzumaki. "What? BJ did it," Himawari said with a scoff, as Jazz looked at her with disapproval. "What kept you guys?" Sam asked, as she looked at Danny. We had a problem with that ghost dog." "Oh, speaking of which Danny was saying, before he was cut off, when Kyujo in his big form was heard barking loudly, as he ran into the yard, making a beeline for Salem. "Yow! Call him off. Someone get a vet." Salem yelled, as he yowled like a cat and ran off towards a tree and climbed up it in a panic, as Kyujo barked up at him. "Kyujo! Heal! Leave him alone. Danny yelled, as he ran over to Kyujo. Yeah, 'cause if you're gonna go after a cat, then go for the hag, Himawari said, as she jerked a thumb at Tucker and Turbo Granny. Hey! Don't pass the buck to me, you Uzumaki brat. Turbo Granny yelled at Himawari. Okay, enough. We only have around 6 hours or so to get this party started, Zelda said, as she clapped her hands loudly, getting everyone's attention. Right. Jazz, Sabrina and Casper, you lot can help me inside, getting the decorations and food ready. Naruto can join us when he shows up, Hilda said, as she pointed out each of them, before she led the way inside. Jazz nodded at this, as she followed Hilda, along with Sabrina and Casper. The rest of you will set up the haunted house, Zelda said, as she looked at the rest of the teens. What about the Moron trio? Are they around? Himawari asked, raising an eyebrow at this. It's my party and I'll die if I want to, die if I want to. Gahahahahahahaha, the ghostly trio was heard singing from inside the mansion, before cackling with laughter. I'm on it, you kids just get to work, Zelda said with a sigh, as she went inside to go and deal with the 3 ghosts, while Danny, Sam, Tucker and Himawari went inside the tent for the haunted house. Hey, are you guys going to just leave me here? Salem yelled after everyone, while Kyujo in his small form barked up at him happily, as he was just having fun messing with the black cat. Inside the tent. The teens quickly got to work and started to put up the decorations for the haunted house. I gotta say, for a family of witches, this isn't exactly what I was expecting, Sam said, as she looked at the fake spiders hanging from the ceiling. Oh. And what exactly were you expecting? Danny asked curiously. Something actually scary. I mean, come on, do you really think that this will help you win your bet against Dash? Sam asked Danny, as she gestured to the decorations. Yeah, this sucks. I mean, spaghetti worms. What are we, for? Himawari asked with a scoff at this. Oh geez, the bet. I need to find a way to make this scary and in a hurry. Danny yelled in a panic, as he slapped his forehead, as he had forgotten thanks to Kyujo and Valerie. I have a suggestion, Tucker said, as he raised his hand. If you say ask the hag, I swear Tucker, that I will put you through that F-wall, Himawari said with a flat look at her friend. What? Are you afraid that I'll actually have something to scare you? Turbo Granny asked with a big grin, as she poked her head out of Tucker's backpack. Well, she is pretty old. She might actually have an idea or two, Danny said, as he looked at the possessed stuffed animal. Guys, we could ask Dash, Sam was saying, before she was cut off. Okay then, what are you thinking back on? Tucker asked, as he looked at Turbo Granny. Well, oi, who are you calling back on? Turbo Granny was saying, before she grabbed Tucker and started to pummel him with her paws, which did nothing of course, seeing as she was just a stuffed animal. Would you just get to the point, hag? Himawari yelled loudly. Fine. I was going to suggest that these two head for Limbo and borrow a special sword from an old acquaintance of mine, Turbo Granny said, as she crossed her arms. How can a sword help? Himawari asked, raising an eyebrow at this. Guys, why not just summon? Sam was saying, before she was once again cut off. It's the sword of the Fright Knight, brat. When it cuts someone, it traps them in an illusion that shows them their worst fear, Turbo Granny said with a smirk, as the teen's eyes widened at this. I'm sold. Danny yelled with a smile at this. Okay, you girls keep working and we will go speed off to Limbo. Tucker yelled, as he switched to his yokai form. Oi. If you think you're going to leave us with the work, and they are gone, Himawari was saying, before Tucker had taken off in a burst of speed, while grabbing Danny and Turbo Granny. I don't want to add on to this day being a pain, but couldn't we just summon Beetlejuice and ask him to help us make this haunted house scary? Sam asked, raising an eyebrow at her friend. Remind me to rip out that hag's eyes later for not letting you finish. Okay, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Himawari said, after blinking in surprise, before she quickly began saying her friend's name 3 times. You rang? Beetlejuice asked with a grin, as he appeared in a poof of smoke. Hey BJ. Look, we are under a tight deadline here and we need help. Himawari was saying, before she was cut off. Who is it? I'll send whoever is messing with you to the loony bin. Beetlejuice yelled, as he made a straitjacket appear on himself for emphasis. Relax. We just need help getting this haunted house ready, so it's actually scary, Sam said with a roll of her eyes at the manic ghost. Hey guys, did you leave Salem up that tree and let that ghost dog guard him, hey? Sabrina was saying, as she came into the tent with Salem on her shoulder with Kyujo close behind her, before Beetlejuice appeared behind her and Sam in his normal outfit and put his arms around their shoulders, causing her to drop the family spell book. A haunted house. Now that's what I'm talking about. What are we talking about here? Classic 90s horror? Torture horror? Oh. How about psychological horror? Beetlejuice yelled with a grin, as he looked at the teens. Oh, this screams a great idea. Let's ask the ghost with the IQ of a cockroach to help with the haunted house. What could possibly go wrong? Salem asked, as he looked at the ghosts. Are you sure this is a good idea, Hima? Sabrina asked, as she looked at Himawari with a nervous look. Hey, BJ is great at scaring people and don't call me that. That's reserved for friends, Spellman, Himawari said with a nod at BJ, before she gave Sabrina a hard look. I don't know, what are your qualifications? Salem asked with a raised eyebrow, while Sam and Sabrina separated from the ghost with the most. Ah. Well. I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I travel quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague and had a pretty good time during that. I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. Not to mention the fact that you're talking to a dead guy. Now what do you think? You think I'm qualified? Beetlejuice said with a professional tone, but as he talked, he slowly started to get more manic, before he started to yell at them, before he whispered the last part. I think he means, can you be scary? Casper asked Beetlejuice, as Sam and Sabrina looked at Beetlejuice, bewildered at this. Oh. They want to ask me if I can be scary. Beetlejuice said with a grin, as he looked at Himawari with a grin that was very unsettling. Himawari smirked at this and gave a thumbs up at the ghost, who looked at the 2 teens, Ghost Boy and Talking Cat. What do you think of this? Ahaha. Beetlejuice asked with a grin, before he screamed loudly, as a bunch of scorpion tails came out of his face, before just as quickly as he did it, he stopped. Gaha. Casper and Salem yelled, as the ghost took off flying out of the tent, while Salem jumped so high, he made a hole in the top of the tent, while Kyujo took off running out of the tent, yelping like a scared puppy. Do you like it? Beetlejuice asked with a grin at Sam and Sabrina, as the goth looked surprised at this, while Sabrina looked shocked and had her mouth slightly open. Okay, I'm sold. Now let's get to work, Sam said with a grin at Beetlejuice and Himawari. Good. So, are you good to help Spellman? Himawari asked with a smirk at Sabrina, who she could tell was still rattled. Why yeah. Just hold on, while I go get Casper, Salem and Kyujo, Sabrina said as she quickly left the tent. Yeah, you go help the sap, cat and the dog, Himawari said with a scoff at this. Looks like we won't need that stupid scare knight's sword that Danny and Tucker went off to get, Sam said, as they all got to work before she paused and spotted the book Sabrina dropped which she picked up. Beetlejuice was looking around the tent, before he paused when he heard what Sam said. I'm sorry, could you repeat that, he asked Sam. Oh, Turbo Granny suggested that Danny and Tucker go with her to Limbo to get some sword that was used by a knight, Himawari said with a shrug. Wait what? Beetlejuice yelled, as his head started to spin in place. I'm going to guess that's not good, Himawari asked, as she raised an eyebrow at this. What's not good? And why did I have to calm Kyujo down? He was acting like he was being chased by the vet, Naruto asked, as he came into the haunted house, carrying Kyujo in his small form, who was shaking like a leaf, after Beetlejuice had scared him. We need to go after your 2 apprentices ASAP, Whiskers. That idiot Turbo Granny is leading them into the dragon's den. Beetlejuice yelled, as he grabbed Naruto and started to shake him by his shirt. Why? What did she do? Naruto asked, as he got Beetlejuice's hands off his shirt. She suggested borrowing the sword of some ghost called the Fright Knight, Sam said, as she recalled the name of the ghost the possessed toy had told them. Oh, for crying out loud, Naruto said with a groan, as he slapped his forehead at this. I told you that hag would be trouble, Himawari said with a flat tone of voice at her brother. Excuse me, could someone please explain what's so bad about this Fright Knight? Sam asked curiously. The Fright Knight is a ghost that isn't exactly one to help you, just because you ask him nicely, Naruto said, as he shook his head. Yeah, he's only about serving his lord and MSTR and leading his army, Beetlejuice said with a scoff. MSTR? Himawari asked, raising an eyebrow at this. No time for that. BJ, you have a way to get us to them? Naruto asked the trickster ghost. Well, I could, but that's kind of a big-time rule that could get me into big trouble, Beetlejuice said, as he crossed his arms and scowled. How big are we talking? Sam asked, as she knew Beetlejuice had a long track record, just from talking to Himawari and how Walker reacted to him. It makes what I pulled at the ghost prison look like child's play. Oh, by the way, I'm still on the lam, avoiding the ghost patrol, because of that, Beetlejuice said, as he looked at Himawari. Before anyone could respond to this, Himawari's phone went off, getting their attention, and when she took out her phone, she saw that the caller ID said it was Tucker. Tucker, I swear to God, if you morons let out another S-class dash, Himawari was saying, before she was cut off. Grill me later. The Fright Knight chased us out of the ghost zone and is now causing a rampage downtown. Tucker yelled over the phone, as the sounds of crashing and yelling was heard in the background. Oh, you mean, listening to your new buddy the hag, didn't work out? Himawari asked with a scowl at this. How the F was I supposed to know your idiot boy toy and his friend would just pull his sword out without thinking? Turbo Granny yelled over the phone. I said I would gut you, if you called him that again, you mother, hey, give that back. Himawari was yelling at her phone, before Naruto snatched her phone from her. Just stay calm. We are on the way to back you up. Naruto yelled into the phone, before he hung up and looked at everyone. Okay, let's go. BJ, please tell me Dummy is ready to go, he asked the poltergeist. You bet. Saddle up pilgrims, 'cause we're going to war. Beetlejuice said with a grin, before his outfit switched to a cowboy outfit, as he led the way outside, before he summoned Dummy in a puff of smoke, who smiled at everyone in greeting. A John Wayne reference, really? F you're old, Himawari said with a wince at this, as they all got into Dummy. Hey, I wasn't lying about living through the Black Plague. Beetlejuice yelled, before Dummy took off down the road, destroying the ground as he drove. Hey guys, I think this book Sabrina left behind might have some information on the Fright Knight. Sam yelled, as the book opened at her touch and quickly flipped to a page, showing an image of what looked like a medieval knight with a sword. Well, get reading. We need to find a weakness before we get there. Himawari yelled over the roar of Dummy's engine. Hey, you think we have time for a song? Oh, you, pretty chitty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang we love you. Beetlejuice sang with a manic look on his face, as he drove his ghost buggy away from Whipstaff, while the teens looked at the ghost with bewildered looks. As the group left, in a bush nearby, Kerrigan and Dibs poked their heads out, showing that they had been hiding there the whole time. I can't believe this. You hire an expert to get rid of those ghosts and what does he do? Dibs asked, as he scowled after Naruto. He gets most of them out of the way, Kerrigan said with a grin. Exactly, and Dibs was saying, before he paused, as he realized what he had just said. Come on, you idiot. Let's get in there and find the treasure, Kerrigan said, as she led the way inside. Unseen to them, Kyujo, who had been left behind, came out of the haunted house and tilted his head to the side slightly, before he took off to follow after the two humans into Whipstaff. With Danny and Tucker. Meanwhile, downtown with the two teens and the possessed stuffed toy, they were in the middle of a fight, with what looked like a black knight, who had long purple hair and a cape that looked to be made of flaming purple fire, green eyes seen through the eye holes of his helmet that had green mohawk spikes on top, while holding a green glowing sword. Danny launched a jump kick, but was quickly slapped away by Fright Knight, knocking him through the wall. You kids are pathetic. Turbo Granny yelled from her perch on Tucker's shoulder. Why don't you get in there then? Tucker yelled, as he looked at the possessed toy and pointed at the Fright Knight, who had his sword at the ready, as he glared at them. Did I say pathetic? I mean, you guys have this, yow. Turbo Granny said with a forced smile, before she yelled, as some green flames were thrown at her and Tucker, making her jump off his shoulder and take cover near a porch nearby. Danny pulled himself out of the hole, ramming his elbow into the Fright Knight, which did nothing to faze him, as he slid to the ground. Danny was struck hard by a kick to the stomach, knocking him into the air, before falling HRD on the ground. The Fright Knight raised his sword up to strike down the young Halfa, but just as the strike made impact with the ground, a black blur zipped past, causing the Soul Shredder to crash into the floor. The armored ghost turned to see Tucker on all fours, with Danny on his back. Yo, you good dog? Tucker asked his best friend. Why yeah, thanks for the save, Tuck, Danny said with a sigh of relief. Anytime bro. Tucker said, as both teens took up fighting stances and charged at Fright Knight. An aura stealer and a ghost working together. You both will suffer for this insult. Fright Knight yelled, as he jumped into the air, raising his sword up to strike both teens. Danny fired off an ectoblast, which he easily knocked aside, while Tucker leapt into the air, driving several rapid kicks into Fright Knight, who quickly caught his leg, swinging Tucker around in his grip, before throwing him into Danny, knocking both of them to the ground. Danny and Tucker jumped into the air, throwing double punches, only for the Fright Knight to once more slap them to the side, crashing into the table, with Danny and Tucker groaning as they staggered to their feet. Stay back Danny, I'm going all out. Tucker said, taking a running stance, as a surge of red aura erupted from his body. Tucker then shoots off at Fright Knight, pouring all his energy into his right leg, kicking Fright Knight with full force, the strength of the kick knocking him a good distance back, allowing Danny to shoot off a large energy blast, striking Fright Knight. Both teens started to catch their breaths, as the smoke faded, with Fright Knight emerging from it, barely phased from the assault. This farce is over, Fright Knight said, holding up his sword. But suddenly, a loud honking sound caught everyone's attention. Chitty! Beetlejuice was heard yelling, before Dummy came driving down the road towards them. There they are, you idiots! Naruto yelled, as he pointed towards Danny, Tucker and Fright Knight. Now I just need a parking spot. Beetlejuice yelled with a smile, as he continued to drive Dummy. Shouldn't you slow down for that? Sam yelled, as she noticed that Dummy wasn't slowing down at all. Nonsense! Beetlejuice yelled, before he laughed madly, as he turned the steering wheel, which caused Dummy to sharply turn and tipped over and start to roll towards Danny, Tucker and Fright Knight. Take cover! Danny and Tucker yelled, as they quickly jumped to the side, as Dummy rolled past them. What kind of attack is dash? Fright Knight was yelling, before Dummy slammed into him and sent him flying down the road, causing Dummy to land on his wheels again, in between two other cars. Like a glove. Beetlejuice said with a grin, as he looked at where he parked. Meanwhile, Naruto's hair was standing on end, while Sam was hugging the seat in front of her in terror and Himawari, well. If you weren't my friend, I swear, I would have you committed, Himawari said with a groan, as she got out of the car. I'm never driving with you again, Sam said, as she quickly followed after Himawari. Oh, come on. I made good time. Right, Whiskers? Beetlejuice yelled after Sam, before he looked at Naruto. No comment, until my hair stopped standing up, Naruto said with an annoyed tone, as he got out of the car. Guys, Sabrina's book has information on him. Sam yelled, holding said book in her hands. Good, so how do we take this flame tin can down? Tucker asked, watching Danny throw several punches at the Fright Knight who had returned, backing him away, allowing Tucker to launch at him with an axe kick, leading to both youths being slapped aside. That's easy. You just have T-dash. Beetlejuice didn't get the chance to finish his words, as Soul Shredder carved into him, coating him in a green spectral glow, causing him to vanish. Beetlejuice, everyone cried out in shock, seeing the bio-exorcist vanish. Good riddance, grave robber, Fright Knight said, only to be met with a hard punch across the face, by a partially transformed Naruto, his eyes blazing red, joining Danny and Tucker in the fight. With Beetlejuice. Whoa, it's dark in here, Beetlejuice remarked, looking around the void of darkness around him. Haven't seen it this dark, since that total eclipse of the sun in the 19th century, he remarked, as he began walking around. Now where's the exit in this place? Beetlejuice asked himself, as he looked around. Suddenly, green flames began illuminating the darkness, showing him a pathway. Beetlejuice. The ghost with the most felt a shiver run down his spine. He slowly looked around once more, seeing he was all alone. Maybe it's just my imagination, Beetlejuice remarked, as he began walking along, seeing the green flames start shifting into a dark blue. Beetlejuice. Fear once more gripped Beetlejuice's heart, as the voice spoke again with greater volume. Beetlejuice's walking soon turned into a panicked sprint, as the sound of the voice growing closer and closer with every step he took, before he suddenly came to a stop, as twin pillars of fire erupted in front of him, revealing a bound Lydia and Himawari. Lyda. Hima. Beetlejuice shouted. Beetlejuice. The voice called once again, as a familiar figure emerged from the veil of shadows, a mangled face Beetlejuice had not seen since the Black Plague. And not you. Beetlejuice uttered, never dreaming he would see this woman after so many centuries. You are mine, my love. And I will not allow anyone to take you from me, Dolores stated, taking hold of Lydia's face. Don't you touch them. Beetlejuice shouted with anger in his eyes, seeing the woman glare at him, before a brief moment, her anger turned into a sadistic smirk. She lifted up Lydia's face, slowly opening her mouth, as Lydia's mouth slowly began to open, drawing out a blue wisp from her, drawing into the woman. No. Beetlejuice shouted, rushing to save the girls, when suddenly, he found himself restrained by hundreds of dead hands, pinning him to the ground, leaving him only to watch on, as he struggled for freedom. Beetlejuice watched on, as the color began to leave Lydia's skin, her eyes slowly shooting open, as they rolled into the back of her head, her body drying up like a withering husk. Beetlejuice froze with fear, as Lydia's remains, her clothes and her husk of skin fell to the ground, fading into dust. The woman then looked to her second prisoner with a sadistic smile. Stop it. Leave her alone. Beetlejuice shouted, watching on as the woman began to draw out Himawari's soul as she did Lydia's. Please, stop. Beetlejuice begged, as black ooze like tears leaked from his eyes. Back at the fight. Back in downtown Amity, the trio threw down their fists into Soul Shredder, pushing Fright Knight back from the combined impact of the boys' attack. Meanwhile, Sam and Himawari looked through the book, hoping to find a weakness to stop him. They both smiled, as they found what they were looking for. To cease the storm, to end the fear. The sword must sheath in pumpkin near, Himawari recited. Guys. You have to put the sword back in a pumpkin. It's the only way to stop the sword's power. Sam yelled. A pumpkin? There are no pumpkins, seeing as we have trashed the place. Danny said, as he threw a trash can at the Fright Knight, hitting him in the head. Someone call for a pumpkin. Turbo Granny shouted, holding up a jack-o'-lantern in her tiny paws, which she had grabbed from the porch she had been hiding under. You! Fright Knight growled, catching the possessed doll. Oh! Turbo Granny shouted, before taking off. Before the Fright Knight could give chase, Naruto tackled Fright Knight, smashing him through a nearby car, causing him to drop Soul Shredder, which Danny quickly picked up the sword, flying over towards Turbo Granny. Naruto's claws carved into Fright Knight's armor, who retaliated by kicking him off, sending him skidding along the ground. He burst from the hole, before looking over to see Danny flying with his sword in hand, as he quickly gave chase. Danny looked behind him to see the Fright Knight in pursuit. Danny! The Halfa looked down to see his friend running beneath him. Danny smiled, tossing the sword down into Tucker's hands. The tech geek zipped ahead, holding up the sword, as Turbo Granny tossed the jack-o'-lantern towards him. Tucker raised the sword, thrusting it forward, impaling the jack-o'-lantern. "NOO!" the Fright Knight yelled, as he was engulfed in some flames, which was sucked into the jack-o'-lantern that his sword was plunged into. As soon as this happened, Beetlejuice appeared in a poof of smoke in a fetal position. Make it stop. Make it stop, Beetlejuice yelled out, as he shook his head a bit. Wow, what happened to him? Tucker asked, as they all approached the poltergeist. Weren't you paying attention? The Soul Shredder makes you see your worst fear, and I'm guessing he saw something pretty bad, Himawari said, as she grabbed Beetlejuice by his shoulder to shake him a bit, hoping to snap him out of it. What did he see? A soap monster? Turbo Granny asked with a scoff at this. Before she was struck with a mallet by Beetlejuice. Oi, don't joke about that, you hag. Beetlejuice yelled, as he held up his mallet, ready to take another swing at her. Oh good, he's back, Himawari said with a smile at this. Yay, Naruto said with a flat tone of voice, as he switched to his human mode. Oi. Is this any way to thank me for saving your hides? Turbo Granny yelled out, as she stomped her foot. Well, to be fair, you're the one who suggested we try and use that guy's sword, Tucker said, as he looked down at the stuffed doll with an annoyed look. How was I supposed to know you didn't know how to seal up possessed items? All aura stealers worth a DMN know that. Turbo Granny yelled at Tucker, as she jumped onto his face. Hey, give me time. I'll have them both trained soon, as after this, I'm done letting these two learn on their own, especially if they are going to fight things like the Fright Knight or worse, Naruto said with a sigh, as he had been considering this for a while and today just proved that he needed to step in and help the two teens learn. Wait, really? Danny and Tucker asked with excited grins at this. Put a pin in this for now, as we need to get back and help set up the haunted house, Sam said, as she held up Sabrina's book, so she wouldn't lose it. Oh hell. The party is starting soon. Danny yelled in a panic. Okay pilgrims, let's get back in a hurry. Beetlejuice yelled, as he jumped into Dummy, ready to go. No. Sam and Naruto yelled in a panic, as they weren't ready to ride with Beetlejuice again. Oh, man up. He won't park like that again, right BJ? Himawari asked, as she got into the car. Oh fine, ruin my fun, Beetlejuice said with a pout at this, as everyone got into the car. If you get us there with plenty of time, while driving carefully, I'll let you have some fun with Dash and his friends. Danny said to the ghost, as he sat next to Sam. Not at the party though, but after that, go nuts, Naruto said, as he nodded at this, as he figured Dash had this coming after his crash about his and Himawari's parents. Sold. Beetlejuice yelled, as he started the car and drove down the street. On its side on two tires. Is this something you learned in driver's ed? Tucker yelled in a panic, as he held on for dear life. Driver's ed? Beetlejuice asked with a raised eyebrow. Wait, you never took driving lessons? Naruto yelled at this. Well, I took a crash course, Beetlejuice said with a grin. We're all gonna die. Turbo Granny yelled in a panic, as she held on to Tucker for dear life, as Dummy drove back to Whipstaff. With Sabrina and Casper. Meanwhile, with the teenage witch and Casper, they were both looking through the hidden lab of whipstaff, as while they had been decorating, they had spotted Kyujo sneaking into the house and had decided to go after the ghost dog, to make sure he wasn't getting into any mischief. "What is this place?" Sabrina asked, as she got out of the chair that had carried her down here, while Casper hovered next to her, while she used a spell to remove all the shaving cream that was on her from the machine that had carried them down here. "I know this place," Casper said, as he looked around, before smiling brightly as memories started to come back to him. "Really?" Sabrina asked, as she looked at her ghost friend. "This is my dad's lab. He used to make all kinds of stuff here when I was alive," Casper said with a smile, as he flew around happily, as he reminisced. "Wait, your dad was an inventor?" Sabrina asked, as she smiled a bit at her friend. "Yeah. He made the up and at M machine we used to get down here just now," Casper said with a nod. "Didn't he ever hear of caffeine?" Sabrina asked with an annoyed look, as the machine had kind of scared her a bit on the way down. "I don't think that was a thing back, aha," Casper was saying, before he spotted what looked like a big pool of water in the room and flew over, so he was hovering over it. "What's that?" Sabrina asked, wondering what had him so excited. "It's what my dad was working on after I died, but he never got to use it on me, before he got taken away," Casper said, as he looked around for something. "Why was he taken away?" Sabrina asked curiously. "No idea. All I remember was going to sleep and the next day, he was gone, though my uncles were really mad at the town afterwards," Casper said, as he frowned at this. Sabrina frowned at this, as she could tell Casper was sad about this. "Well, what does this thing do exactly?" she asked, deciding to help her friend by distracting him. "Well, according to my dad, it's called the Lazarus and if it works, it will bring me back to life," Casper said with a grin of excitement. Sabrina paused in surprise at this and unseen to them, Kerrigan and Dibs, who had snuck in after them, had heard this too and were silently watching them. "Wait, this thing can bring you back to life? Like, actually make you alive?" Sabrina asked the ghost boy in surprise, as she approached the desk in front of the pool of water. "Well, that's what my dad said. I just can't remember how to activate it," Casper said, as he frowned a bit. "Well, what about that?" Sabrina asked, as she pointed at what looked like a big metal door across the room. "That? Nah, that's just the vault," Casper said as he looked at it, before shaking his head. Kerrigan and Dibs upon hearing this smiled, as a plan formed in their heads, as they moved silently to get closer. Sabrina looked at the desk and after looking around a bit, she found a book on the desk and tried to lift it off the desk, but she found that she couldn't, as the book seemed to be stuck to the desk. She then raised an eyebrow at this, before she opened the book, seeing that it was hollow on the inside and that inside it was several buttons, one of which was bigger than the others. Sabrina raised an eyebrow at this, before she pushed the bigger button, which caused the desk to shake, as the pool in front of them started to bubble. "You did it," Casper said with a smile, as the controls next to the pool of water started to move out towards the pool, where what looked like a giant metal chamber started to lift out of it and soon the chamber and the controls met and the room stopped shaking. "This is the Lazarus?" Sabrina asked curiously, as she joined Casper to look at the machine and while the ghost looked at the chamber in wonder, she looked at what looked like a beaker full of red liquid. "Careful. That's what makes the whole thing work," Casper yelled, as he flew over and grabbed it from Sabrina's hands. "So it's the fuel for this thing?" Sabrina asked, as she gestured to the machine. "Essentially, yes," Casper said, before he took the beaker and put it into a hole and turned it, so that it was upside down. "And I take it, that's the only one?" Sabrina asked. "Looks like it and it's just enough for one," Casper said, as he flew towards the chamber. "Wait a minute, Casper, are you sure?" Sabrina asked her friend. "Yeah, I'm sure. There is a lot that I didn't get to experience while I was alive and this is my only chance," Casper said with a nod. "Well, if you're sure, then I'll help you." So, it's this lever, right? Sabrina asked, as she gestured to a big lever on the controls. Yeah, I think so. Casper said, as he rubbed the back of his head. What is it? Are you nervous about becoming alive? Sabrina asked curiously. No, it's not that. I just wanted to know. Casper was saying, before he trailed off nervously. What is it? Sabrina asked, raising an eyebrow at her friend. I wanted to ask you, if you would go with me to the dance upstairs, when I am alive again, Casper said with a nervous look on his face, as he looked at his friend, while nervously playing with his fingers. Sabrina's eyes widened at this, as she slowly realized why Casper had been pranking students who had been messing with her and picking fights with Himawari for her comments, even if she thought the Uzumaki was justified in being annoyed with her, causing her to blush a little. It's okay if you say no. I just thought Casper was saying, before being cut off. No. It's okay. I mean, yes, I'll go with you. I mean, if you're going to your first dance, it may as well be with someone you know, Sabrina said with a nod, as she smiled at the ghost after composing herself. Casper smiled at this, before he quickly flew through the steel door and into the chamber. Sabrina looked at the controls and grabbed the big lever and pulled on it, causing the smokestack on top of the chamber to go off and the machine to turn on and Sabrina to look at it, as it started to work. Back upstairs. Meanwhile, back upstairs, the party was in full swing, as the students in their costumes were enjoying the party, while music was playing, before the lights slightly dimmed, making the students yell in surprise. What the heck was that? Hilda asked, as she looked away from Lancer, who was dressed in a Greek robe, while she was dressed like a witch, along with Zelda. We're here. Sorry we are late. Danny yelled, as he and the others ran into the party, dressed in their costumes. Danny was wearing an astronaut costume, Tucker was dressed as a vampire, Sam was dressed like a hippie, Himawari was not wearing a costume, while Naruto was using his fox ears and tails, to make himself look like a kitsune half-breed. You're late, Mr. Fenton. You better have an impressive haunted house, as Mr. Foley had quite a good haunted house set up for the community center, Lancer said, as he looked at Danny with a firm look. Heh. Well, you see Danny said with a sheepish chuckle, as he pulled on his collar slightly. But he was cut off, as screams were heard outside, before several students ran inside, knocking over several of the students in their rush to get inside. What in the name of mice and men is going on? Lancer asked who was dressed as a caveman, who had run in with the students. There was a monster in Fenton's haunted house. Quan, who was dressed as an alien, yelled in a panic. Yeah, it was that same freak with the mold on his skin. Yelled, as he nodded at this, as he tried to stop himself from shaking, but he was failing badly. Yeah, and some hags' voices was yelling about ripping off our dongs. Quan yelled as he shuddered. This got smiles from Danny, Sam, Tucker and Himawari, as it was obvious that Beetlejuice and Turbo Granny had decided to help out with the haunted house. I'm going to assume that there was a ghost incident and that's why you're late. Jazz whispered to Naruto. Yeah. It's been a full night. Whoa, nice costume Jazz, Naruto was saying, before he noticed that Jazz was dressed as a cat girl, complete with cat ears and a tail. Thanks. Figured that I would at least get in the spirit, even if I'm a chaperone, Jazz said with a smile. Hey, Uzumaki. What's with not having a costume? Paulina, who was dressed as a princess, asked Himawari with a mocking tone. I am in a costume. I'm dressed as a serial killer and they look like everyone else, Himawari said with a cold tone, as she glared at Paulina. This made Paulina and the other popular kids quickly back away in a hurry from the younger Uzumaki. Hey, where is Sabrina? I wanted to return her book to her, Sam said, as she held up the spell book so Zelda and Hilda could see it. Back in the lab. Meanwhile, back in the lab, the machine was still shaking, while Sabrina was watching it, but as she was watching it, unseen by her, Kerrigan and Dibs were behind the controls, reaching for the beaker, in an attempt to grab it. But unseen by the two would-be thieves, coming up behind them, was Kyujo in his small form, and before Dibs could grab the beaker. Chomp! Yow! Dibs yelled in pain, as Kyujo had chomped HRD on his leg, making him yell in pain and jump out of his hiding spot. Hey! That's not yours! Sabrina yelled, as she turned to look at the two thieves, before she out of instinct, threw a spell at the two thieves, who ducked and ran for the exit out of the lab, which caused the thrown spell to hit the controls. DMN it Dibs, can't you do anything right? Kerrigan yelled at him, as they both ran. Oh yeah, blame me. Not the ghost dog. Dibs yelled, as he and Kerrigan ran off, with Kyujo chasing them while barking. As this was happening, the controls started to spark with magic and shake even more violently. No, no, no. Sabrina yelled in a panic, as she ran over to the controls, but before she could do anything, the chamber's door exploded open, filling the room with smoke. As the room filled with smoke, a figure stumbled out of the chamber. Sabrina looked at the figure, and as the smoke cleared, her eyes widened and she started to blush again, before she smiled. Back at the party. As the party continued, everyone paused, as they saw Sabrina come downstairs dressed as a witch, complete with a witch's hat, and with her, was what looked like a teen boy with short blonde hair, who was dressed like a pirate. Huh, who's the guy Sabrina is dancing with? Sam asked the others, as they all saw this. No idea, I've never seen him at school before, Tucker said, as he shrugged a bit. I'll tell you who it is, he's the reason I lost my bet with the moron trio. I bet that Sabrina would ask Whiskers out and get a pity dance, Salem said with a pout seeing this. Hush you, and we are talking about this later, Hilda said with a glare at the cat. Wow, that's some good animatronics, Miss Hilda. Can you say Lancer? Lancer said to Salem, as he had heard Salem and looked at him fascinated. Lucer, Salem said with emphasis, getting laughs from the students at the party. Hey, Spellman. What's with you and the nobody? Dash asked with a laugh at seeing Sabrina dancing with someone not in the popular crowd. Yeah, I should have known that you weren't worth being one of us, Paulina said with a grin at this. Sabrina's eyes narrowed at this, as she looked at the popular teens, before she clenched her fists. You know what, you're right. Here's my 2 minutes notice, she said, before she snapped her fingers. Suddenly, loud cackling was heard, before the ghostly trio flew into the room. Who's ready to throw a real party? Stretch yelled, as he stretched his face and made a scary face at the teens, who all yelled in a panic. Pardon the smell. I haven't showered or brushed my teeth since I died. Stinky yelled, as he let loose his breath at the popular crowd, making them turn green from disgust. Party food. Fatso yelled, as he ate from the buffet table, before he belched loudly in the face of Lancer. This caused all the party-goers to scream in a panic, before they all started to run out of the manor, and soon, the entire mansion was empty, except for Sabrina, her date, her aunts, Salem, Naruto, Jazz, Himawari, Danny, Sam and Tucker. Not bad for my first Halloween party, huh? Sabrina asked everyone with a smile. It couldn't have been better, the boy with her said with a grin. Not bad, Spellman. I think Beetlejuice would be impressed, Himawari said with a grin, as she clapped her hands at this. Watch it, sis, we don't know if he's okay with all this, Naruto said, as he gestured to the boy with Sabrina. Yeah, who's the newbie? Stretch said, as he floated next to his brothers, as they all looked at the teen curiously, as he hadn't reacted to them at all. It's me, uncles, the boy said with a grin at the trio. The ghostly trio yelled in surprise at this. Is that you, kid? Hilda asked, raising an eyebrow at this. Whoa, witches can bring the dead back. Tucker asked, his eyes widening, as they all looked at the resurrected Casper. No, we can't. How did you do this? Zelda asked Sabrina curiously. We found an invention of his dad's and dash, Sabrina was saying, before being cut off. Wait, that Lazarus thing actually works. Stretch, Stinky, and Fatso yelled in shock. Actually, it wasn't working at first, but Sabrina zapped it and then, next thing you know, well here I am and check this out, Casper said with a smile, as he made his hand lightly glow with ectoplasmic energy. Oh, I get it. Sabrina's magic mixed with mortal tech and it resulted in the kid ending up becoming like him in a way, Salem said, as he gestured to Danny. That's what I'm assuming. Probably not something that can be repeated, as this kind of result is like lightning in a bottle, as magic and tech almost never works as intended, Zelda said, as she and Hilda inspected Casper a bit. This breaking any rule with you and your family? Jazz asked Naruto curiously. I have no idea, but seeing as it involves magic, I'm going to leave this one to you aunties, Naruto said, as he shook his head a bit. He should be fine, but we should observe him for a bit, before he leaves the manor first, Hilda said, as she inspected Casper. Sounds good to me. Now let's head home, as this day has been a pain in the ass, Himawari said, as she and the others headed for the door. Oh yeah, here's Sabrina, you dropped this, Sam said, as she approached Sabrina and handed her spellbook. Oh, thanks Sam, Sabrina said with a smile of appreciation. It was no problem. That thing was pretty useful, Sam said as she shrugged. Oh. How so? Zelda asked curiously, as she looked away from Casper. Well, when I opened it, it showed me all the information we needed in the fight with Fright Knight, so it made fighting him way easier. See you Sabrina, hope to see you at the loser table tomorrow. Sam said to Zelda, before she followed the others out of the mansion. This caused Zelda, Hilda and Salem to freeze in surprise, before looking at each other. What's the big deal? There isn't some rule about mortals holding the book for a bit, is there? Sabrina asked her aunts. We don't need a rule like that, seeing as spell books don't open for people without magic, Hilda said, as she and Zelda watched Sam, as she ran after the others. This caused Sabrina and Casper's eyes to widen in surprise at hearing this. With Valerie. Meanwhile, with Valerie, she was in her room, sitting on her bed, a scowl on her face, at the fact that Naruto had ruined any hope she had at hunting ghosts, thanks to him outing her to her dad. That DMN freak, thinking he can preach to me, thinking that ghosts are more important than keeping people safe. Valerie growled out, as she clenched her fists in anger, as she looked at her mirror in her room. I must say, I agree, a voice said from behind her. This caused Valerie to spin around, throwing a punch at the figure behind her, but her fist was caught by what looked like an older male with black hair and black eyes, as he had a stoic look on his face. Now, there is no need for that, Miss Gray, seeing as we have an enemy in common, the man said, as he held Valerie's fist for a moment, before letting her go. What do you mean? And how did you get in here? Valerie asked, as she rubbed her fist. I mean Naruto Uzumaki and his family. I am from an organization that feels the same as you about spirits and apparitions. What if I told you, we could help you gain the power to get your revenge? The man asked, keeping his stoic look on his face. I'm listening, Valerie said with a grin at hearing this, as the man's eyes went from black to red. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author KFB Anime 87 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video, till then goodbye.